What if a killer could enter your home without a sound, leave no trace, and vanish into the night? What if he gave you a warning, and you still couldn't stop him? This is the chilling story of the Axeman of New Orleans, a shadowy figure who terrorized a city, left a trail of blood, and disappeared without a trace. Was he a man, a monster, or something else entirely? Let's dive into the mystery. The city that care forgot. New Orleans in the early 1900s was a city of contradictions. Jazz music filled the air, but so did the whispers of crime and corruption. It was a place where cultures collided and secrets lurked in every shadow. But in 1918, something darker emerged. A predator who would turn the city's vibrant streets into a hunting ground. The Axeman's reign of terror began in May 1918, when an Italian grocer named Joseph Maggio and his wife were brutally murdered in their home. The killer used an axe to smash their skulls, then a straight razor to slit their throats. The brutality was shocking, but what made it even more chilling was the killer's precision. He seemed to know exactly how to enter, attack, and escape without being seen. Over the next year, the Axeman struck again and again, targeting Italian-American families in their homes. He would break in through a panel of a door or a window, wield his axe, and vanish into the night. The city was gripped by fear, and no one felt safe. The attacks were not random. The Axeman seemed to have a pattern targeting Italian grocers and their families. This led many to believe the killer had a personal vendetta against the Italian community. But why? Was it a grudge, a twisted obsession, or something more calculated? The letter that shook the city. Just when the panic seemed unbearable, the Axeman did something unprecedented. He wrote a letter. On March 13, 1919, the New Orleans Times-Picayune published a chilling message from the killer himself. Hell, March 13, 1919. Esteemed mortal, I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band playing, I will not be able to do any damage. If not, I will kill at will. The letter was signed simply, The Axeman. The city went wild. Jazz bands played in homes across New Orleans that night, and not a single attack occurred. But was the Axeman serious, or was he toying with the city? The letter only deepened the mystery. Who was this killer who seemed to enjoy not just murder, but psychological terror? The letter also added a bizarre twist to the case. Was the Axeman a music lover, or was this just another way to manipulate the public? Some even speculated that the letter was a hoax, but the police took it seriously. After all, the Axeman had already proven he was capable of anything. The victims and the pattern. The Axeman's victims were almost exclusively Italian-American grocers or their families. This led many to believe the killer had a personal vendetta against the Italian community. Some speculated it was a mafia hitman, while others thought it might be a deranged individual with a grudge. But the Axeman wasn't just targeting Italians. He was targeting their homes. He seemed to know the layout of each house he entered, suggesting he had cased them in advance. He also had a peculiar habit of using tools he found at the scene, like axes or razors, rather than bringing his own weapons. This made him even harder to track. One of the most baffling aspects of the case was how the Axeman could enter homes without waking anyone. Some survivors claimed that they heard nothing until the moment of the attack. Others reported strange noises like footsteps or the sound of someone tampering with a door, but by the time they investigated, it was too late. The attacks were brutal and efficient. The Axeman would often strike in the middle of the night when his victims were most vulnerable. He would enter through a back door or a window, often removing a panel to gain access. Once inside, he would grab an axe or a razor and attack his victims as they slept. The suspects. The Axeman's identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American crime history. Over the years, countless suspects have been proposed, but none have been definitively linked to the crimes. One theory points to Joseph Mumfre, a known criminal who was later shot and killed by the widow of one of the Axeman's victims. Mumfre had a history of violence and was rumored to have ties to the Italian community, but there was no concrete evidence to tie him to the murders. Another suspect was a man named Andrew Maggio, the brother of one of the victims. Some believe the killings were part of a family feud. But again, the evidence was circumstantial. Then there's the theory that the Axeman wasn't a person at all, but a supernatural entity. Some claimed he was a demon or a ghost, citing the eerie silence of his attacks and his ability to vanish without a trace. Others believed the Axeman was a copycat killer, inspired by the infamous murders committed by the servant girl annihilator in Austin, Texas, decades earlier. The similarities between the two cases were striking, but there was no direct connection. The end of the Axeman's reign. As suddenly as the attacks began, they stopped. After October 1919, the Axeman of New Orleans vanished without a trace, leaving behind a city paralyzed by fear and a mystery that would endure for over a century. Was he dead? Had he fled to another city to continue his reign of terror elsewhere? Or had he simply grown bored with his macabre game, satisfied with the chaos he had sown? The questions lingered, but the answers never came. The case remains officially unsolved, a cold file in the annals of crime history. Yet the legend of the Axeman lives on, woven into the fabric of New Orleans folklore. He has become a boogeyman, a spectral figure who haunts the city's collective memory. Every year, on the anniversary of his infamous letter, jazz bands play in his honor, a bizarre and eerie tribute to a killer who once held an entire city in his grip. This tradition, born out of fear and survival, has transformed into a cultural oddity, a testament to the city's resilience and its ability to find light even in the darkest of times. The Axeman's legacy is a chilling reminder of the power of fear. He was more than just a killer. He was a master of psychological manipulation, a shadowy figure who knew how to exploit the darkest corners of the human psyche. His ability to instill terror without ever being seen, to control an entire city with a single letter, and to vanish without a trace has cemented his place in history as one of the most enigmatic and terrifying figures of the 20th century. The lingering question: the Axeman of New Orleans was more than just a killer. He was a master of fear. He knew how to manipulate a city, how to strike without warning, and how to leave a mystery that would endure for over a century. But who was he? A man, a monster, or something in between? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, could he return? So what's your theory? Was the Axeman a man, a myth, or something more? The truth may be out there waiting to be discovered. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content. Thank you.